welcome to the next episode of the Appalachian Podcast. I'm your host, Billy Riddle. With me again, my co-host, Jeff Taylor. Bodine.
Good to be back.
Yeah, we're still
we ain't done to get on tap in a minute.
Yeah, we're gonna take it. We've been kind of still taking it easy here lately, which has given us a good opportunity to get guests. Excuse me, like we have on here today. Before we get going, though, I wanted to take a minute to point everybody to our Facebook page. Right now, we've got like a big post that's linked to a bunch of charitable organizations, specifically for us, God's Pit Crew. There was a terrible flood down in Southwest Virginia, Eastern Kentucky. It went through and devastated. And as everybody knows on here, we have tons of ties to that part of Appalachia. That's where my wife is from. That's a little further west, but I went to Iraq with a bunch of the guys that live down in that neck of the woods and college, and just I love them to death. They're great people, and it was devastating. I was seeing a story about a family that lost 4 kids, all under the age of 8 years old, and it broke my heart. I don't know. I can't even fathom or put into words how something like that would do to me or a lot of people. So check that out. Go find God's Pit Crew. I know those boys were on the scene right as right after it happened. They were already making plans. We've dealt with those folks down there before. They're Danville, Virginia. They're local. So, say a prayer for all those people. And any way you can help out, check out our Facebook page. And we got a post about it that's pinned to the top of the page. So, yeah.
That's the thing about God's Pit Crew. It's like they are on top of things, almost like they're immobilized right after something happens. Even during all the hurricanes, no matter what happens, God's Pit Crew is like, boom, right on it, no matter what happens.
Well,
they're amazing people.
I've been to their facility before, and I've had to deliver there, and I'm pretty sure my stepdad he does a lot of work with them down there too over something, and they have stuff prepared and ready to go for when something happens. They load it up on a truck and they're gone. I mean, the essential things that you would need right off the rip. And then while they're down there, they're gathering plans of the other things they need to send and gathering more resources. So there's them, and people have already left a ton of comments for a bunch of other nonprofits and groups and organizations that are going to help those people. So if you get a chance, go find that out. It's terrible. So
almost instantly they donate. You see them loading up, I guess, canned foods, water, and paper products is like boom, 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 and they get that stuff on the way, and it's probably already there from the first shipment they loaded up.
I mean, did you see any of the pictures or anything? Have you
paid
attention? I mean, it's
catastrophic.
It's a 1,000-year flood, and to beat it all, it was not only a few months ago that part of the state had those massive tornadoes come through, and also about the same amount of time period up around Hayside, Virginia, and that neck of the woods, they all got flattened by flood. So it's been a bad couple, decades for that part of Virginia. So send whatever help you can.
God's Pit Crew is a good organization for us to align with because we do so much with racing and pitting that God's Pit Crew just aligns perfectly with us. So.
Yeah, that hit me today. I think I'm going to hit up my stepdad and see if he can put me in touch with the founder there. They got a fantastic story, and anything we can do to help. But so anyway, check all that stuff out. We'll get to today's guest, which we're super excited about. We've had a lot of cool people on this show before. This one is going to be a really cool one because we have somebody who likes to get in a ring and beat the snot out of people, and I am a big fan of that. So we were and pretty cool dude himself. So Steve Mowry, Steve, welcome to the Appalachian Podcast, and we appreciate your time.
Man, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
Bodine was kind of asking how I even found you, and I said, well, basically it's the power of the internet, and it's kind of a cultural kind of thing. Right now it's a lot of crazy stuff going on in the world, and I started taking our Instagram page in kind of a direction where we just make some funny memes to kind of poke. It was kind of like Bodine, the Appalachian Podcast meets the Franklin County Meme Farm. But I wanted to put just stuff that's either really Appalachian based or, kind of that speaks to our culture, which is, which we're in a culture war right now, essentially. But to cut all that nonsense, I just saw that Steve here was liking a bunch of our posts, and I was like, man, I said, I really would like to get a fighter on this page. If he's like, 10 or 15 of them, I said, well, maybe he is paying attention. And I just sent him a simple message, and here we are. So that's the power of the internet and just the power of, kind people and reaching out and just asking. Yeah. It's simple.
That's why I asked Billy, I said, where did we get in touch? How did we get in touch with this guy? But I remember driving back from Myrtle Beach yesterday, and Billy says, hey, I got this guy, Bill. I don't know how you pronounce it. Is it Bellator?
Yeah, it's Bellator.
Bellator fighter. And I'm like, all right, let's do it. And immediately we've got and it confused me because there's a guy from where we live that fights, and it's a different one. I can't even remember his name. So at first, that's who I was thinking. I couldn't remember his name, and I was driving. So I mean, it didn't make no sense, and that's who I was thinking. So I got home and started researching. I was like, oh, okay, I got you now.
Oh yeah. You guys know Matt Van Buren? Does that name ring a bell?
It does.
Yeah, he's from that neck of the woods, the Virginia area. I met him probably 5 years ago. I stayed with. He lived with me for a little bit. We had an apartment together. He's a real good friend. He's retired, but he's doing really well in his life now, I guess. But he's another dude that just from that neck of the woods that we moved, to the other side of the country. We found each other in South Florida. So
yeah, I think he's from Norfolk, Virginia. He's over there towards the coast. Yeah.
Further east. I have another buddy, Garrett Fosdick. He's told me the town probably 100 times, but he started off in Virginia, and then he ended up wrestling in college at King College in Tennessee.
Okay, yeah, King College is there in Bristol, Tennessee. Yeah, absolutely.
I have a few friends from Tennessee, man. Tennessee's another beautiful state.
So if he went to King, there's a chance he's probably from our neck of the woods in Virginia. There is a good opportunity.
Oh, for sure.
So I think we consider our neck of the woods from here, the Blue Ridge Mountains west, all the way down towards Tennessee. It's all kind of the same.
Hell yeah.
Beautiful country and great people.
A great place to be too. It's like we were talking about earlier, the weather and the terrain, like just the kind of area it is, the kind of people that come from there. Man, Tennessee's fucking dope. You wouldn't think, like, especially me growing up, you hear about all these different places. You're like, man, how cool could it be? But then you go and you're like, yeah, this is exactly the kind of spot I want to be in.
Well, you don't appreciate it when you're a kid, right? So when you're a kid, it's all about the lights and the glitter, and you like the go-karts and the putt-putt course. You don't really think about the beauty you get to see when you're in those mountains and things of that nature, and don't get to appreciate it till you're a little bit older. So it is good looking back and thinking about how good we had it, witnessing that kind of stuff growing up.
For sure. And I mean, where I'm at now too in South Florida, like, don't get me wrong, I love being here. I love the weather, but like, I would definitely say the one thing that flipped pretty quick was, I got a taste of like the big city life, as it were, like I started working security like pretty much as soon as I moved down here in a really glitzy, ritzy part of South Florida called Delray. It's, like a big bar scene, a big arts culture scene.
Yes.
And like pretty quick, I got burnt out of like just the kind of people that were there and like the culture, how people talk to each other. I was like, I didn't realize how good I had it up north until I moved down here,
Yeah, that was strange. I was trying to tell somebody about this not too long ago at work. I'd come across a fella, and we sat there and talked for about 35 or 40 minutes. And he said, yeah, man. He said, I'm Puerto Rican, and I come from Philadelphia. And, I ended up having to leave and get out of there for a bunch of illegal street racing, essentially, and just kind of getting involved in that crazy world. It must have been huge. And he said, when I come down here, it was a whole different world. He said, I would be at a store, and just a very lovely lady would hold the door open for me and speak to me nicely and genuinely ask me how I was doing. Yeah. He said, it took me 6 months to not think she was trying to set me up to get robbed, because he was like, lady, what's going on here? Where I come from, if a good-looking woman is talking to me, I'm about ready to get robbed. So
that's right. Getting a shank in the parking lot or something.
Yeah, exactly. Such a culture shock. So he, I thought that was kind of interesting, kind of just an eye-opening idea of where we really come from, and how awesome the people are here. You talk about the area, and just there's a lot of manners. It's wild just to see how people really interpret the Southern charm that's going on.
Oh, and every time I've ever bumped into somebody, like you can there's a very distinct difference in culture between like the people who came from like my neck of the wood and that your neck of the wood, and people who like come from down here. And I'm not saying they're all bad, but there's just a very noticeable difference just in how they are and how they act, how they treat people. It's not to say that some of them are that they are good people or they're not polite, but I definitely noticed that there's something a little bit different about them.
And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that either. That's the best part about America is you can be in different parts of the country and have some things that are alike and some things that are different and be fine with it. You know, you're free to kind of move around and find what fits you.
Hell yeah. And I mean, that said, like, don't get me wrong, I miss where I'm from, but I'll probably be here for the rest of my life. I don't see it any other way.
So how long have you been in Florida?
I moved here. I did like my first, like, I guess you'd call it like a visit at the end of 2015. I met my coach and he was like, why don't you come back? So I visited for like 3 days. I came back. I visited for like 2 weeks. I left and I came back for like 2 months. And then in like March or April of 2016, I was throwing all my shit in a car driving down to South Florida.
And you left Pittsburgh area. You said north of Pittsburgh is kind of where you grew up.
Just north of Pittsburgh, yeah. About 35 minutes north of Pittsburgh.
So you haven't been in Florida. So you really were born and bred north of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So what was it like growing up there? What actually, and that kind of makes a lot of sense. Why? Kind of explain how you kind of got into fighting. So I'm guessing it had to have been up there, or did you not get into it until you moved to Florida?
No, it was there. So when I started fighting, it was because I found a magazine in my dad's house. It was like a Men's Health or kind of thing. And I think he lived in this whatever apartment building. And I think somebody had just left it there. But I found it and it talked about like MMA and stuff. And I vaguely had like an idea about what it was, but I wasn't sure. I didn't really know actually about it. So whenever I pick up this magazine, I start reading about it. And I was like, man, this sounds cool as fuck. And I started looking up videos. And then a couple months, I knew exactly right then and there, like, this is exactly what I want to do. And so I started training right away. Pennsylvania, especially the part where I'm from, is a very strong wrestling state. And I was very blessed that, like, whenever I jumped in, the wrestling culture there is so deep and strong that I was able to just piggyback off of all the other people there that were already training, all the other guys that already had a wrestling background. One thing led to another. I did all my amateur fights there. But it got to the point slowly but surely where I realized, like, if I really want to reach the top level, the maximum peak of my potential, I'm not going to be able to do it here. I'm going to have to go where all the other best guys in the world are. So, like I said, I was kind of bouncing around. I visited this place in Texas that I was briefly considering, but just something about it wasn't right. But then when I flew to South Florida, I met this guy, Henry Hoops. He's my coach now. We met, we clicked really well, and then next thing I knew, I was packing all my shit in the car.
So did you wrestle in high school?
I wrestled for 2 years, my junior, my senior year. I got to it kind of late. And obviously, like I said, the people in Pennsylvania were just so good. I couldn't really do anything of note, just given the time that I had. But yeah, so I did 2 years in high school, and then I picked it up. I trained as much as I could, not just the wrestling, but the boxing and jiu-jitsu as much as I could along the way.
I was always terrible at wrestling. We would have to do it in gym class. And like, I'm 6'6", and I just had, like, and Billy knows, like, playing football, I have this really high center of gravity. So it was easy to knock me down. I mean, I had to be like really low down to get like a center of gravity. It was easy to make me topple.
I'm 6'8", so I know what you mean. They'd be like, all right, you got to get down in your wrestling stance. You got to get down low. So I'd get down and I'd still be like 6'2". And they'd be like, no, you got to get even lower than that. I was like, this is as low as I can get. What are you talking about?
Yeah, because when you're squatted down, you're still at like 6 foot to everybody else.
Oh, yeah. And I was like, what do you mean? The lowest I've ever been in my life. And you have to like stay in that stance. It was hard. I didn't have any athletic background before that, really. So it was different.
Being 6'8", you know how it feels like when you go out in public, you're on an elevator or something, and you have to look up to somebody. You look up at them and say, Jesus, you're a big bastard.
Yeah.
I'm thinking to myself, because I'm 6'6", and I see somebody taller than me. It's like, wow.
It just always makes me feel a little bit like, damn, that's my thing. You're taking it.
Yeah, you're a big bastard. And everybody said, what's it like to be so tall? I say, well, I hit my head on a lot of shit.
That's right.
Hold on.
I got a lot of bruises up here.
I'm everybody's friend at the supermarket. That's what I said.
Oh yeah, sir, that is funny. There's always like a little old lady that says, "Sir, do you mind getting that off the top shelf for me?"
See, it's down here. It's not so much, sir, do you mind? It's more, hey, I need you to grab that. And I'm like, I don't work here, but okay. They talk to me like I work there, and like they're the one paying me out of their own pocket. But I'm like, you know what? Okay, it ain't nothing for me to go ahead and grab this for you real quick.
I remember we was on a cruise a couple weeks ago, and I got on the elevator with the guy. Like literally, I got in the elevator with him, and I looked up to him. Like, I think I said, "Jesus Christ, you're a big bastard." So, of course, we'd all been drinking, so it was funny to him too.
Or, when I a couple of years ago, I went to Holland actually. So Stefan is true, a good friend of mine. He's taller than me. He's like 7 foot. The tallest, so they say in Holland, like that's where like some of the tallest people in Europe are. So I was like preparing myself to see a bunch of skyscrapers. But honestly, the tallest guy other than Stefan that I saw was in the airport before I even left the States. Like at the airport in Fort Lauderdale, I saw this guy. He had to have been 7'4". He was fucking huge. I was like, I could not believe. I was like, I bet you this guy's going to Holland too. And then we weren't even on the same flight. So.
That's weird.
Hold up now. I want to rewind here for a second, and I got to do this. Bodine, you talked in a lot of circles to get around the fact that center of gravity. I mean, what you went a long ways just to say I'm just an unathletic, crazy bastard. You know what I mean? I mean, come on now. You were somehow working yourself into comparing yourself to Steve right here, like y'all were even on the same atmosphere.
Well, no, not
with
that.
Like, yeah, I kind of relate to you. No, hell no,
No. Because back then, back then I didn't get it. I didn't understand that I was just lazy. Now I get it.
But it's hard to not even being lazy, but
what's that? Steve?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say if I had Bodine's size in high school with my determination, I would have been clotheslining people either in WWE or in the NFL at some point in time in my life. I could smack him upside the head for having that size and being second string to me in high school football. I'm like 5. I say I'm 5'11". It's like 5'10 3/4. I think I should get that extra quarter inch. You know what I mean?
How much you stretch?
Inches matter. And Bodine should have been kicking my ass every single day. It pisses me off that he was second string to me. He is a massive creature. He's just he's just too goddamn nice. That's his problem. He's just a nice giant teddy. He doesn't have that killer instinct in him.
That's to get back to what Bodine said, it's like, yeah, people tell me that all the time, and you don't know what you don't know. Like people tell me all the time, if I was your height, I would just do this, and I'm like, okay, but like I still don't know how to do that. Like I didn't know how to just being big doesn't get you to the dance. You have to be able to fight. You have to be able to do different techniques. We work with a lot of NFL guys too, and a lot of them were like, yeah, you didn't play ball in high school, and I'm like, nope. Like, oh man, you would have been a great whatever tight end. I've heard it's usually tight end or D end, but then I hear different things along the way. Somebody told me a center one time, and I don't know, but my point is that they tell me that, and then I'm like, I hear about like what their salary is. So we had a couple football guys in the other day, and I told them I was like, yeah, I just got this new contract. I'm making this and this, and he was like, what do you mean you're making? So this is the most money I've ever made in my life, and I was like, not brag. Obviously, I knew I didn't make as much as them, but I was just, really proud of myself that I'm making this and this, and like I can't wait. And he was like, "Bro, I wouldn't even get on the field for that." Just curiosity took hold. We ended up following each other on Instagram. I looked him up, and on Wikipedia it said how much he signed to his team for, and I was like, "Bro, I'm in the wrong fucking sport." Like just his sign. I was like, I could have retired off his signing bonus. I was like, you got to be kidding me, dude.
Yeah, and that's a fair enough point for Bodine's calls, but the difference is where Bodine failed, it wasn't because lack of potential athletic ability. It was he preferred to chase skirt and bong like multiple beers at one time in high school, as opposed to going into what you know what I mean. That's that was fine because he could put three or four beers in a bong and knock it down in 5 seconds. I mean, who can do that? I guess. I mean.
Yeah, there was one sport I was good at, and that was bonging beers. And I still can. It just hurts a whole lot worse because that cold stuff, I think I like traumatized.
You would have a heart attack, Bodine. You were too old to be doing that shit. I hope you.
I am too old to be doing that shit. And like I've had people say, "Hey, if I had your height, I would do this and this," and I'm like, "Yeah, if I were your height, I'd be able to fit on a roller coaster easy." Or
yeah. Oh yeah.
It's hard as hell to get on roller coaster.
Wouldn't have people stop me in Walmart to ask me how tall I am all the time?
Yeah, same.
My boxing coach, my kickboxing coach Henry, he whenever we're doing whatever, he's like, "Yeah, go work on the bag," and then he'll always be like, "Bag stays undefeated," meaning like you can never get too much work out of a bag. They'd be like, "The only two things in this world are undefeated: the bag and pussy." That's what back to what you were saying. Yeah, no matter how much athletic ability you have, if you chase skirt around, you're never going to catch enough skirt.
No, it's literally chasing the dragon. I mean,
that's for sure.
All right, so Steve, this is I have some really cool fan questions that I think the typical person would kind of want to know. And simply being because I don't think many people can grasp how difficult it is to train for being a fighter. I mean, I have here recently, I don't know if any of y'all have ever listened to, it's called Crime in Sports. If you have never listened to that podcast, I highly recommend it. These two, it's a couple of comedians. I think one of them's from New York. She's got this really cool Italian thing going. And they just go over athletes that have just had terrible criminal records, and they make it so funny. But they also kind of point you in the direction of a lot of fighters, because a lot of fighters, just end up going, because a lot of them are coming from crazy situations. They get pulled from the streets. And anyway, I go back and I watch Mike Tyson and how fast he was and how phenomenal of a specimen he was. And I don't think we quite could appreciate that back then. And even further today where, people are handing everything on a platter where they can catch everything on YouTube and this. I still don't think they can appreciate what a fighter goes through, just the rigors. So just kind of walk us through a rigorous day of training, like how you prepare and things of that nature.
Yeah. So being a heavyweight, like that, I'm about 10, 15 pounds away from the limit on the underside of it. So I have the luxury to eat what I want when I want in terms of not worrying about having to make weight. But that said, it's, just like everything in life, what you get out of something is what you put into something. If you try to put, unleaded gas in a rocket, it's not going to get off the ground, let alone fly in outer space. So, a lot of it is, you have to eat right. You have to show up to the gym. You have to work hard. You have to constantly be trying to add new things. You have to constantly be refining your approach. Putting new tools on your tool belt, working on little things, not just in terms of what'll make my jab faster or stronger, but more on the athletic side, what'll make this move more efficient, what'll make it more effective. And then what people don't realize is it's not just training and eating and all that other shit. That's only 30% of the game. 70% of the game is staying in a headspace that's conducive to, fighting somebody. I don't mean yeah, you have to hype yourself up and be mean and mad, but the best in the world and your average Joes all are terrified of the prospect of having to fight somebody in a cage. And so it's, you really do have to be in a very healthy mental space where you're you're ready to be locked into a cage with another grown man who wants to beat you up. That's the hardest part, I feel like.
Staying focused, like you said, you got a plan, you got a game plan going in. If you've trained and watched videos of a guy, his habits or what he's going to do, you got to keep that in here to be able to get to that point and stick to your game plan.
Yeah, but even for me, it's more, okay, what can I do to be the best I can be on this date at this time. So like not just peaking physically, but mentally, you know, how able am I to hold myself accountable to pull the absolute best out of myself whenever the cage door locks behind me on whatever the fight date is. So for me, it'd be August 12th.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna get to that. And I wanted to definitely talk about that. A funny story for me, and this is why I can appreciate so much of what it takes to go through it. We used to have this thing when I got back from basic training, because I did the reserves thing, or the guard. I go back to Emory and Henry, and they started this thing in front of a dorm, and they would call it like Tuesday night fight nights. And anybody on campus that had a beef, or anybody on campus just wanted to go and maybe go against somebody and see what they had, would all congregate around this dorm. There'd be people on the roofs and everything. It'd be hundreds and hundreds of people out there watching organized fighting. And one night, somebody just kind of threw me in there, and we started going. And I was as in shape as I'd ever been in my entire life. And just 3 1-minute rounds, I ended up beating the guy pretty good, but it really wore me the hell down. And I was in great shape. I thought I was in great shape for me. But to just be able to go out there and go, what are the minutes of your rounds typically? Are they 3 but 5 for a belt, I guess? Is that how it is?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, so a regular bout would be 3 rounds of 5 minutes, and then a championship fight is 5 rounds of 5 minutes.
Yeah, so I mean, 3 minutes in the best shape of my life about killed me. So I just want people to appreciate how hard it is to go in there when you're going against somebody else at peak athletic, ability. So kudos to you for being able to do it. I don't think I could. I would get my ass whipped. I'm too out of shape. I like beer too much, but but I can do what I have to do if I'm in a crazy situation. That's good enough for me. I am going to put my kid, I have decided, into some type of martial arts or something. I want him to be prepared because it's also a good defense mechanism in today's crazy world. You never know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, having the self-confidence to know that you can take care of yourself in a situation is invaluable.
And your family and things of that nature. Steve, who were some of your influences? Who do you enjoy watching fight out there? Maybe in the UFC level or something, or maybe somebody that boxes.
So my favorite boxers are Vladimir Klitschko and Tommy Hearns. My favorite kickboxers are Badr Hari and Daniel Guida. My favorite, I have several, I guess you'd call them favorites, but a lot of the MMA guys that I really like were like Jose Aldo, Chris Weidman, Vitor Belfort. And then like just as the game's constantly evolving and changing, I love seeing what guys do, not just the adjustments they make, the micro adjustments they make in fights, but the macro adjustments. Like what are they doing from fight to fight to fight to change their game or, build onto their game to like make themselves better. One guy that's done really well to do that is the champion right now, Charles Oliveira. Or I guess he's not champion now. He had a snafu in his last fight where he missed weight and they took the belt away. But anyway, he's a guy that like, he was up and down in his UFC career, but then about 3 years ago, he just like came alive and then he won on this crazy 8-fight win streak. He's finished like every fight but one in his last 8 at the top level. It's what he's done is really special, really something special.
Yeah, I really enjoyed. I think, Bodine, our generation might have just barely missed the boat on being MMA fanatics. I think like we were like kind of like we were the end of the NASCAR generation, and then UFC and Ultimate Fighting and MMA, that kind of style, really started taking over boxing kind of around the time that, the Tysons of the world and the Holyfields and all them kind of started following. So it was a crazy, weird transition. We
used to just watch regular boxing.
Yeah, that's what it would be. You'd go watch the boxing match. It'd be Tyson or Holyfield or Riddick Bowe, or wrestling. Wrestling was huge in the late 90s. WWE kind of style stuff.
Wrestling still got its niche.
All my friends they would watch, like, especially where I grew up, like you said, MMA. I mean, it hadn't really caught on at the age that I'm talking about, like the late 90s, early 2000s. But even still, like, the predominant sports were, like your footballs, your boxing, boxing had this very quiet period from like the mid 2000s up until like Floyd Mayweather really started kicking.
True.
And then NASCAR, especially in the area I grew up, NASCAR was big. I knew a ton of people who love NASCAR. And then even like the people that like the fans that push the MMA culture forward now, I would say are like the generation probably after me. The guys who are like the kids who are like 6, 7, 8 years younger than me.
This might date me, but the first MMA fighter that I really could recall and remember as being like a huge star and a name that resonate was George St. Pierre. That was the first one for me, and I guess that's quite a few years ago. I always enjoyed watching him fight. I always enjoyed watching. I guess Chuck Liddell was pretty big back then.
Right.
I remember one time, and this is back when money was tight, and we all got together and we bought the. I think it was Chuck Liddell and Tito Ortiz fight, and it was billed as like the biggest thing ever, and we were all super excited, and we went in, and Tito Ortiz caught Chuck Liddell literally like 5 seconds into the fight on the chin, and it was over. It was such a letdown, but even after that, Anderson Silva, I mean, watching him fight, and even down to Conor McGregor, his swag, you got to give it to him. I mean, it sells.
Yeah, I mean, Chuck Liddell you're probably right. Chuck Liddell was, I would say, like the first like household name in MMA, but like the first like superstar would have probably been like a Conor McGregor. You know what I mean? Like on the par of like a Michael Jordan or like a Ronaldo or one of the Tom Brady on that level, probably Conor McGregor. But like you said, all fucking legends, man. Like GSP, whenever GSP was fighting, he was probably like my favorite of the guys doing it. He was just so consistent. He was so on. His style was so fucking effective. It was really cool to see just like the best guys in the world who were good at, everything. And he was in there just totally shutting them down.
Yeah, I think, what's the guy's names? They were the brothers, but it was Nick
Diaz.
Yes, Diaz. Nate Diaz and the Conor McGregor fights, I think, were some of the best fights I'd ever witnessed in my entire life. They were phenomenal. They went back and forth 3 times, and you couldn't ask for better.
No, especially watching the first fight was so cool because it was like, yeah, whatever. Like, this is the Conor show. And then Nate was a late replacement for somebody. So it was like, yeah, whatever. But there was like the fans in the know, were hip to the fact that like, Nate Diaz might come in here and do something crazy. And then sure enough, he did. And it was wild. Like the whole sport got turned on its head.
Yeah, we almost turned on our head that night too. That was back in the heyday. I really, really enjoyed watching that stuff. I'd like to get back into it. It's just so tough these days when you got 100 different things going on. What do you think? And I kind of want your opinion from a fighter. When we talk about somebody like Conor McGregor, how tremendously big he is, or he was, or however you want to categorize it at this point in time. But to be able to set up a boxing match with Floyd Mayweather, how big that was for both sports, and just from a fighter's perspective, I mean, do you think Conor really went in there and did as good as he did, or do you think Floyd kind of let up so they could go a few extra rounds? Because I don't know. In my opinion, Conor went in there and guns a-blazing and, put on a show. So,
yeah. So the thing about the both of them, and especially like around the time that we're talking about, was like, this is Conor at the height of his power. I would definitely say he's fallen off since. It's not to say that he sucks now. It's just the Conor from like 2013 to like 2017, 18-ish, that was like the baddest motherfucker doing it. He won titles at 2 weight classes. There really wasn't anything bad you could say about the guy in terms of like what he was able to accomplish. But that said, I don't know if with what made Mayweather so special was just he had this weird, uncanny ability. I don't know if it was innate or he taught himself how to do it or what, but like everything was like a show. Like you really felt like especially when the camera hit him, you really felt like you were in the room with him, and he was just doing all this wild, wacky, crazy, cocky, brash stuff, and you were just one of his posse members if you liked him, and if you didn't like him, you felt like you were one of his, an angry mob following around. Hey, fuck this guy. And what made the sense of occasion on that so special was that a lot of the MMA guys had truly written Conor off. Whatever, like this is a payday for him. but especially watching the fight, like what gives some kind of weight to like what you just said about like, hey, maybe Conor McGregor did a lot better than everybody thought. Is the fact that like, yeah, he was able to go in there and he had a really good, especially his first like 3 rounds, he was starting to get loose. He popped him a couple times, but it would not surprise me at all to find out that deep down in his heart of hearts, Floyd Mayweather just wanted to put on a show for everybody, because that's what he does more than anything.
Yeah, I
think so too.
I think the fight kind of went about how most people expected, that Conor was going to come out in the first few rounds and give it all he had and try and catch that one lucky shot, maybe the one that'll knock him down. Because ultimately, you just don't, in the amount of time that they had, and I'm not speaking from experience because I'm so out of shape, but I would assume that Conor McGregor still didn't have enough time to be able to go through the endurance that a boxer would for a boxing match. He's just used to shorter time frames. You know, Floyd is also a fighter that fights defensively. That's how he wins boxing matches. So his fights are tended to go a little bit longer. So he's very, very much more winded than your average human, even Conor McGregor. So that's kind of how the fight went. He went out there and threw it his all the first couple rounds and got a couple jabs. None knocked him down, and towards the end, Floyd, his perseverance. That's at least how the fight went. Whether it was contrived or not, it still kind of ended up that way.
For sure. And yeah, I mean, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I find Floyd's intelligence. I mean, he's just a really smart guy. You know, I'm not saying Conor McGregor's dumb, but you know, it was a payday to get in the ring with him. Floyd Mayweather's smart enough not to get, you know, because Conor McGregor said, "Hey, come over to UFC and let's fight over here." Floyd Mayweather was smart enough not to do that. You know what I mean? I think there is some intelligence there, and not to say Conor's not intelligent, but he's just, you know, fearless. Let's do it. Let's see what happens. Whatever. And Floyd's a little bit of quite a bit of a thinker to me.
Yeah. Well, the thing about even that, it's like, I don't know how much I attribute to Conor thinking, hey, I could really do this, because he very well might have really believed like, hey, I'm going to knock out Floyd Mayweather. But part of it too is like hard not to ride that fucking wave whenever like the opportunity comes your way, you know. Even still, so like I'm trying to think of a good comparison. I'm drawing a blank, but like, let's say like a Tyson Fury, right? It'd be hard to say no to an opportunity where I could box Tyson Fury for the figures that Conor made were somewhere between 50 and 120 million. Bro, honestly, I would fight Tyson Fury tomorrow for 5. It's like, it'd be hard to imagine saying no to that, you know? Like, man, fuck, 5 million and I get to box the baddest motherfucker doing it at my weight class. Why would I say no? Like, what is the downside? So actually, to give you guys some perspective, back in December, I had the opportunity to grapple with this guy. His name is Nicky Rodriguez. And Nicky Rodriguez, he's just a jiu-jitsu guy, just a grappler. And he's ranked like somewhere in the top 3 or 4 in his weight in just jiu-jitsu, right? I got paid $5,000, and it was on like a month's notice. Like, hey, you want to come out and grapple this guy? Like, it was in the neck of the wood that he was from, kind of thing. They flew me out, they put me up, and I grappled him. And I'll be honest, I knew going into the thing, I was like, look, I'm not really prepared to do the type of grappling that this guy is at the level that he does it. But that said, like, I'm looking forward to the opportunity to test myself. And, you know, we're talking about $5,000, $5,000. Fucking that's not even like 2 full months of expenses for me. But I was like, yeah, fuck it. Like, this is what I do, babe. Like, fly me up. Let's go. And it was just an incredible experience. And that said, here's me for $5,000. Like, yeah, fuck. Like, let me pack my bags. I'll be up there tomorrow. And we're talking about, like I said, I would do it with Tyson Fury for $5 million. And here's Conor, like, bro, some guys wouldn't even get off their couch. Like, okay, well, I already put that money in the bank. Maybe just do some open workouts, make it look like I was serious about it. A lot of guys who very well might have just phoned it in and said, fuck it, I'll go. And so to bring it back to Conor McGregor, like, we knew he was taking it seriously. He very well might have thought, like, hey, I'm going to knock Floyd Mayweather out. It's just that maybe it was more like the opportunity to do it that got him caught up.
Well, there is an awful lot of ego there, and we have to know there is, because to be that good and be on that level, there has to be ego. I mean, Floyd Mayweather had that ego. Tyson had it. Muhammad Ali had it. It does take that little extra something, I think, sometimes to be able to not only go in there and fight with that swag, but be able to market it as well. And kind of, Steve, as you kind of alluded to earlier, it seemed like Conor McGregor fell off after that. And I don't know if maybe that was so much as I don't think his skills might have diminished as much as when you get $50 million, it's kind of like your motivation might slide away just a little bit. And it happens in sports all the time. A baseball player might have a couple fantastic years. He goes and gets a good 7-year, $150 million contract, and all of a sudden his numbers just start kind of falling off.
I'm reading Relentless by Tim Grover. That was Michael Jordan's coach. Or his trainer, one of his trainers.
Yeah.
And he talks about how The Last Dance was phenomenal, by the way. Like, it really painted a picture of, like, so Michael Jordan was like,
I agree.
A dude, right. Like a true great, like one of the best like on a Floyd Mayweather level. And, we kind of got to like peek into the mind of like, okay, to be the absolute fucking best, this is the kind of dude you have to be. And Michael Jordan, he seems like a decent guy, but he sounded like a fucking asshole to be on the same team with. And so, that said, like he doesn't sound like a guy that like you practice with him and be like, man, why don't you come over for dinner? He sounds like a guy that I'd probably be around him for 20 minutes and be like, bro, I'm gonna fucking put your nose on the other side of your face if you talk to me like that. And it's that said, like, those are the guys. Like, it's not about money for them. It's like Michael Jordan is just fucking sick in his head, and he wants to be the baddest dude to ever do it. Conor McGregor for what he was able to accomplish was the first 2-weight champion to concurrently hold 2 belts, and like, he won fights at 170, 155, 145. All of what he did is incredible. But okay, once he got his hands on 50 million, was he the type of individual? Was he a Floyd Mayweather? Was he a Tom Brady? Was he a Michael Jordan? Where it was like, all right, he made it, but like, is he a sick fuck who just wants to be, squeeze the most potential out of himself that he possibly can? Maybe not.
Well, I mean, you also got to think that amount of money, and he wasn't a spring chicken by any means, and the amount of physical abuse you take through the years of that, you finally get to the point you're like, I've got all the money I need. Why am I getting my ass kicked this often? I mean,
some guys are like, man, fuck it. This is Roy Jones Jr. is a guy like that. He never made like the fortune that like a Floyd Mayweather. But I really know this is who I am. Like, I'm a fighter. I want to fight.
So I mean, it should, because you take that abuse, and I wouldn't want to do it for so long that when I got to the older years where I'm really able to settle down and enjoy life, that there was physical disabilities there that self-inflicted. Yeah. But you're a fighter. You're a fighter. I mean, you as you say, you got to make the money and then find that balance to it. And I gotta think that, you never know, maybe Conor just kind of found that balance after that.
Well, $50 million is a lot of balance to find.
You're damn right.
And then so here's the thing too, is maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Conor McGregor maybe he is that level of, sick, disgusting, egomaniac human being that like, I'm put on this earth to hurt people and kill people or whatever. But like, the good life got to him in the sense that like, he can't delineate his priorities from partying and goofing off to, doing what he's supposed to do all the time. So I don't know. It'd be hard to say. I don't know the guy.
Yeah, I mean,
I know Billy would like Floyd Mayweather because Floyd Mayweather don't pay his damn taxes.
Yeah. That's what I'd heard. I heard that every time he fought, at one point he made like $40 million. Somebody told me that like the IRS already has spoken for half of it because he's so like delinquent on all of his taxes.
Well, he's delinquent on purpose.
Yeah,
he makes so much money that his money makes more on interest than the IRS charges in delinquency fees. So he does it on purpose. I mean, it's a financial plan to just be delinquent on his taxes, not pay them until he absolutely has to. It's like 2 or 3 years. Like, he's probably paying 2017 federal taxes right now just because he's went delinquent on them. He's kept the money in hand, made a shit ton of money in investments, and now he'll pay back out what he's made. It's actually a smart way to go.
I'm surprised it took us this long to get into like, you know, this kind of topic, but yeah, totally. And I mean, like, I'm kind of at the same mindset, and I don't make a fraction of what Floyd Mayweather makes, but my mind is kind of in the same place in the sense that I'm like, what the fucking IRS do for me? They're not in the gym. They're not holding pads. They don't put their sparring gear on every Tuesday, Thursday morning. Why do they? What the fuck do they do to garner whatever the
not a damn thing. They don't do a damn thing. They're not out there. They're not out there hitting the punching bag with you. They're not out there. No. They're not out there farming and milking the cows and cutting the fields and growing the crops. They're not building the buildings. They're not doing a damn thing. But they want. You know what? We don't need them. They're a middleman. We could find a way as a community to keep our money and put our quote unquote taxes in whatever area we deem necessary.
You talked about God earlier, and it was like, yeah, it's cool that like they take our taxes and it goes to FEMA, or even worse, it ends up in like these disaster relief funds or even whatever. Like where it ends up in the Ukraine, whatever. But it's like, what gets my fucking blood boiling about that is that it's like people can't divorce in their head the two distinct and separate ideas. That it's like, hey, look, what's going on in Ukraine is an absolute tragedy, and what Vladimir Putin is doing is, it is violent as base as anything that any megalomaniac has ever done. But the deal is, though, that it's like, well, look, like, whatever percentage of my taxes you want to take is fine, but it's not gonna, or whatever percent you take isn't actually going directly into the bank accounts and pockets of the people who need it. It's going into the bank accounts and pockets of these people that sit on boards who are American anyway, or they're, whatever they're officials in the Ukrainian government who are pocketing the money. And I really don't know what to say about like the conspiratorial side of things in terms of like, people are saying they're not really at war. People are saying that like, whatever, that they're overplaying Ukraine's success. They're saying that they're downplaying Russia's success. It's all this other stuff, but it's like, it's a very easy paper trail to follow in terms of like, well, hey, look, like, why are we buying these they're buying Javelin missiles and sending them to Ukraine for like $6,000 a pop. And then they're ending up on the black market anyway, being marked up at 6 times what they were bought for. And it's like, I just don't get it. It's like, well, look, like, I'm all for it. If it had been a cause that I truly believed in, I would have gone to Ukraine myself and fought. But that's the deal, is it's like, well, look, like, I have plenty of my own shit going on that has nothing to do with like the Ukraine. And I could probably think of about 1,000 things that I could use the money better for that isn't using that money to end up in some politician's pocket.
Well,
like God's pit crew.
Yeah.
It is in my opinion, and this is solely just my opinion, but I do believe that the Ukraine is simply just a giant country for money laundering for the United States. It's just being shipped into there, and this is kind of par for the course. And we just got done sending them $40 billion. Can you imagine what a fraction, just 3% of that $40 billion would do for the people in eastern Kentucky right now who just had their entire lives devastated? I'm not somebody, I don't like paying taxes at all. If it were up to me, nobody would pay a cent. But if we're going to meet in the middle somewhere, I would love for my tax dollars to go to support those people right now who have just lost everything, including family members, pets, memories, homes, businesses. I would much rather, why are we sending $10 million to Pakistan for gender studies? Why are we continuing to do, I mean, it's mind boggling. That's why I just say cut the whole entire system out, because they're just going to screw it up anyway.
Right.
So,
if their governor down there in Florida has anything to do with it, we will. He's a fine fella.
What's it? I found some things out about him kind of recently that I'm like, I don't know. And it's not that, maybe I'm wrong and maybe I need to do more research. But like he backed one of the red flag things, the gun laws. I don't know if he personally had a hand in it, but one of his political opponents had police show up and no knock raid his house, like no knock, no warrant, just raid the dude's house, like just shit like that. So again, it's all things. Well, maybe I'm wrong, and like, hey, maybe I would never speak out of turn, and like whatever. If I'm wrong, I'll apologize. But that's the thing is like, okay, well, look, like there are several dudes in politics or in whatever who say they stand for one thing, and then you finding out later on, like, okay, like Dan Crenshaw is the best example.
Absolutely.
Dan Crenshaw is the best example. He's a real American hero, and it's like, okay, well, what's he do that's so heroic? He wants these fucking red flag laws, so people that if you just for buying firearms, you get put on this list. His ROI on his investments was fucking higher than Nancy Pelosi's, which is something that it's like, okay, well, look, like if you're at that position of power in government, you shouldn't be able to, have stocks anyway. But the point is that it's like, okay, well, like, look, the person that gets the most attention, as she should, in the world for committing insider trading, basically, fucking who get her percentage points are beat out by fucking Dan Crenshaw. It's everything about him is I'm like, why do people really like this guy? And, whatever. It happens a lot. You see a lot like, and DeSantis is a guy that I know a lot of. I don't know if I would put him in the same boat as like a Dan Crenshaw, but that said, I catch myself, especially like, I catch myself shaking my head at dudes who like, they advocate super hard for like these whatever red-hatted politicians, and I'm like, bro, they're a fucking Democrat too. The color of their tie is just different, or they're whatever. They're
establishment.
Whatever.
They're establishment.
Yeah, they're pro-establishment. And it's like it's funny that you don't see it. It was John McCain. They call Dan Crenshaw. They call him Patches McCain, and I'm like, yeah, man, fuck.
Hey, here's my theory on that kinda, and because I am under the belief that Dan Crenshaw is just the reincarnated version of John McCain. I think what happened was Dan Crenshaw was a crazy, awesome American Navy SEAL war vet. They came to him and said, hey, Dan, how would you like to make a difference? And he said, sure. Why don't you just step on into here? We're going to give you a physical, whatever. We're going to put you down and take your vitals. And they put him under sedation, and then they just transferred John McCain's brain to him. And now we have John McCain all because it makes no other sense. He had such an opportunity to be somebody, and now he is literally just the same old warmonger and politician that we have out there. And it's disappointing. It really is.
He's a crony as much as anybody else you want to point a finger at. And as much as any Democrat that gets demonized is as bad as anybody's Dan Crenshaw. Now that's a hill I'm willing to die on,
Yeah, I'm right there with I don't have faith in very many of them at all. I'm a big fan of Thomas Massey.
Massey. I like Rand Paul.
Dude, you're a libertarian. That's as simple as that. It's I mean, and I'm there too. I'm a card carrier, and libertarians piss me off a lot. A lot of them do. Just because I'm that libertarian, but I feel like if there's going to be a party out there that's going to get the message out there, and it's not about winning elections, it's about the libertarians making enough noise to where the main two candidates now have to make some of these issues a point they have to discuss, because that's how you slowly win the battle. That's how you slowly get to the point to where, maybe our culture is going back in the right direction.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm with you there. So it's like, it's a thing there. It's like, well, okay, to be a libertarian, you do have to support the establishment in some way, but it's also a thing for me where I'm like, to have a stance on something, you have to be able to like tier your list of priorities. And I feel like, okay, well, like at least with libertarians, we're like slowly bleeding the life out of the establishment that we all don't like so much. It's just dangerous to get into that mindset though, where anybody who thinks they can buy back into the system, buy back into like, well, no, maybe we can make the state work for good. That's whenever you lose me. It's like, okay, well, no, like the less state there is, the better. And it's been shown time and time again. Have you been watching The Anarchists on HBO?
I haven't yet. I haven't had the time to. I do pay attention. I consider myself an anarcho-capitalist, so I should probably catch that. I haven't yet, though.
Well, so I don't want to. Do you mind if I talk about it?
No, talk about it because I will forget about it anyway. So go ahead.
So, I had no fucking idea this was going on, but I guess in Acapulco, Mexico, it's a community of anarcho-capitalists.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, absolutely. A whole entire town. They've kicked out all politicians.
And that's the thing. I had no idea, one, that it was even being attempted, but two, that something like that would even like kick off. But here's the thing. It sounds like, I'm not saying it's perfect. Not that there's no society that's perfect. But like hearing about it, I'm like, wow, this sounds like pretty much the ideal society you would find yourself in if you were an anarcho-capitalist, you know? But anyway, they're getting to this part now where essentially a veteran moved there, and he, you know, I mean, like, he's a true victim of you know, the war state. Like, he'd been through some things, seen some things, probably done some things while he was deployed that had clearly fucked him up, probably, you know, maybe for the rest of his life. And I don't know if he was beyond the point of rehabilitation or not, but my point is that it's like, whatever, the state had, just like so many fucking veterans before him and probably several veteran people after him who, you know, they try to find their way out through the military but end up getting chewed up worse. He had some damage done to him where he got pushed over the edge, you know. So what happens is, you know, they paint this picture where, okay, well, like, these people were finding out a way to make society work, where namely the main denomination was crypto. They were, you know, whatever, it was a community working together through voluntary means. Nobody was doing anything through coercion. It was all just business. And I mean, there was some complaints. I'm sure some people got a leg up on other people whenever they weren't supposed to. It's whatever society you have, you're going to have people do that. It's in a society, you could at least have it this way. Hey, look, this veteran, he killing this guy. And I'm not sure if this is the direction the show is insinuating that, like, okay, well, look, like, maybe if there had been like a state involved, like a government involved, they could have properly snatched this guy up and had him rehabilitated, or at least, you know, saved the lives of this one guy at least. But it's the shit like that that's like, well, that's the kind of thinking that gets us into this mess in the first place. Is like, okay, well, you think that, like, magically, that by outsourcing, you know, our mental health needs and our security needs to the government, you're going to fix all your fucking problems. And if we've learned anything, it's like, no, it's the exact opposite's true. Those people are always going to fucking be there. These people that are going to do evil, terrible, or whatever, it's whether you attribute it to evil or, you know, whatever, a lapse in sanity, whatever, those people are always going to be there. It's just that whenever you have the government, well, now they're there too. And they're every bit isn't, you know, committed to carrying out these heinous acts against you for, you know, not paying your taxes or, you know, not doing things their way or doing things the way you want to do on your own property, on your own time, and they decide they don't like it. But like I said, I'm not sure if that's the direction they're going with it, but I'm getting that vibe that it's like, in an anarcho-capitalist society, this is what you're looking at. It's like, well, no, that shit happens all the fucking time, and there's no way around it. I'm sure you could have less of it or more of it to some degree, but you could very well have less or more of it if you had the community properly respond to it, and if you had the government try to put their hand. Sorry, poor Jeff hasn't had a minute to cut in at all. I feel bad. I'm sorry.
No, well, you were breaking up a little bit. You broke up there, which is odd, right there in the middle of it. So we was catching, but we got back to the gist of it.
Well, yeah, we got to the point, and the point is that every time the government puts their hands on something, they end up screwing it up. And even if they do solve an issue, which is very rare, they end up doing it at 3 times the cost that just normal regular people could get it done. And yeah, I mean, it's a big part of our society these days, and it's wild how people just line up to just kind of follow the regime and not even just put into perspective the things that are going on. I mean, over the past couple of years, and you know, that's one thing about Florida. You guys, over the past couple of years, the one thing I will give DeSantis is, you know, a couple of weeks went by and he was like, all right, to hell with this. You know, we're gonna, you know, so
yeah,
I'm kind of like you. I look at somebody like DeSantis or any of them, and I'm like, man, it's just weird how you exist, and it's weird some of the things that you do support, and then on the other side you support, you know. But I guess it's at this point in time, the lesser of two evils is the best we can hope for until we can manage a bigger defense.
Yeah, so that's the thing with DeSantis is it's like I wouldn't say all aboard the bandwagon, but it's like that are a step in the right direction, or at least the direction that I would take too. But no, like to go back to your point, and I'm gonna have to finish with this, but I just finished The Real Lincoln by Thomas DiLorenzo, and I was and by recently I mean like 2 weeks ago. Recently, I was of the mindset that it was like, okay, well, like, so the Civil War, it's like hard not to attribute to Abraham Lincoln, ending slavery, but just like you literally just said, it's like, well, look, like no matter what has been done, the government will find a way to make it more expensive and cost whatever real human lives just to get whatever their real priority is done, no matter what the expense is. So I just read The Real Lincoln, and it talks about how, like, okay, yeah, did slavery end as a result of the Civil War? Sure, but was there, like, it's not to say that, like, I'm not in any way agreeing with slavery whatsoever, but what I am saying is like, okay, well, look, Lincoln, you'd be crazy to say that Lincoln didn't know there was another way you could end slavery other than war. And there were probably Thomas DiLorenzo points out about 4 or 5 different things that it's like, well, hey, look, like maybe if he had gone the economic route, or maybe if he would have gone the diplomatic route, or maybe if he would have gone this way, like we could have whatever, economically gotten rid of slavery, or like it was already on its way out, kind of. It would have ended no matter what. But Lincoln, one, killed, several 100,000 people over the course of this war, and 2, ended up like centralizing the government and stacking it in his favor in such a way that really nobody else in the history of America at that point had done before. And the way that government is set up today is because Abraham Lincoln, whatever, put his 6'4" top hat over the fucking issue and reconcile that.
Oh, Lincoln definitely just pretty much put a halt to the Constitution in many ways. Like, he had journalists jailed who were questioning the war, and
had a guy deported. Had a fucking guy deported to Canada. Like,
and we had this conversation, Bodine. Unfortunately, our sit down with Brian Moore and Darnell, a couple of guys who are local activists and stuff, and I guess they are part of the Black Lives Matter, and we spoke to them about this too. And I was like, the slavery issue, it didn't come in until 2 years into the war. And you just have to take that with a grain of salt. It's like Iraq with weapons of mass destruction, or Vietnam with the Bay of Pigs, or the Gulf of Tonkin, or, World War II with FDR actually knowing that the Japanese were going to attack. Like, every single war that there has been a media involved, there has been quite a few questions, so to speak. So it's not far-fetched to believe that there were ulterior motives going. Like I said, the Emancipation Proclamation was not signed until 2 years into the war. Ulysses S. Grant also had a ton of slaves that all he did was sign over to his wife's name. And there was slavery going on in the North. There was conscription going on in the North, where immigrants were getting off boats from Europe and they were handed rifles, and they said, either you fight or you die.
See you in Maryland.
Either you fight or die. So, I mean, it wasn't pretty on either side. It really wasn't.
The Emancipation Proclamation didn't free any slaves that Lincoln could have actually freed himself. There was still slavery going on in the North, in the fucking North. And so it's like, look, like this, it has nothing to do with Lincoln himself said several times, one, that he didn't believe black people were in any way equal to white people, and 2, that he had any notion or idea of ending slavery at all. He said it himself. And it's like, so it's like, look, like, hey, look, it's great that slavery's over, right? I'm not at all saying like, well, this side was right, this side was wrong. It's just, it's like, look, like if we could have a more sober view of like what politicians are doing and what they're saying versus what they're actually doing, if we could have a more, sober, candid view or whatever conversation of like what's actually going on, it's like people would really realize like just how little we need those positions of power at all,
Yeah, it's not about arguing the semantics of slavery or the decisions made 150, 200 years ago. It's just being able to sit down and have the conversation to realize, hey, it's been kind of crappy for that long for both sides. Let's just come to that realization that, the slaves weren't that much different than the terrible poor people of Appalachia.
Yeah,
I know no.
And then at the end of the day, it's out. I can say unequivocally right now that I think just by being born into this world, no matter what gender, what race, whatever, what religion, whatever, no matter who you are, I think we're all born with the same innate natural rights to be alive and to, whatever, to pursue the life that you want, so long as it doesn't interfere with the life of somebody else. But it'd be hard for me to admit that I think that that by putting people in power, we are always 100% doing the right thing, even though, clearly, whatever, they're not. They're just not. They're not doing the things that they say they are.
Yeah, they don't have our best interest in mind, and most people don't. And that's why I'm such a anarchist. It's not because I want, anarchy in the urban sense where it's just Somalia. No, that's not what I want. What I want is people making decisions for themselves as best as possible. If you make the right decision for yourself and you help your neighbor and your neighbor helps their neighbor and so on, you have a great ANCAP society that doesn't have somebody else making decisions for you that you didn't vote for, that you don't want, that's just taking his cut just to go up there and speak a few words. It's unnecessary. And with the technology we have today, it's all completely unnecessary.
Oh, yeah. But I got to hop off, guys. I had such a great time talking. I'd love to come back sometime.
Hey, but before you jump off real quick, can we talk about your fight in a couple weeks?
Oh, yeah, sorry. So I'm fighting this guy, Valentin Moldavsky, scary Russian guy. But I'm going to go in there. I'm going to do my thing. I'm going to smash him. August 12th. Make sure it'll be Showtime.
Yeah, it's going to be on Showtime. I mean, this is big for America. You versus the Russians. I mean, this is like 1980s of Rocky.
That's right.
Stuff right here.
Rocky, but tall Steve.
We are going to have ourselves a little watch party here. I'm going to see if you guys want to come over. We're going to barbecue and grill out. We're going to watch the fight on Showtime, and we're going to be your biggest fans. We certainly appreciate the hell out of your time, and man, let's get you back. Yeah, again, let's get you back on here.
I would love to come back as soon when this fight's over. I'm going to reach out again. We'll definitely sit down and have more of like an anarchy kind of talk.
And anytime you're making your way up through the Appalachian region and you're in Virginia, swing by here, brother. We've got hundreds and hundreds of acres. You ride ATVs, hunt, fish, camp, whatever you want to do, man. You're more than welcome to come up and hang out.
I'll definitely, if I'm ever up, I have good friends in Tennessee, good friends in Virginia, man. If I'm ever up that way, I'm gonna reach out. It was good talking to you.
Definitely, guys. We'll be in contact. Best of luck. A couple weeks, you can find him on Showtime, Instagram. Tall Steve Fights People. Steve Mowry. Find him on all social medias. We'll share out some of the links ourselves. Steve, we had a great time, man. So thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. See ya.
Take care. All right. So that was Steve Lowry, and that was a super fun podcast, Bodine. What do you, I mean?
Steve Mowry. You said Lowry because I called it
Mike Lowry. Mike, because, Florida. And
Mike Lowry.
Mike Lowry. Yeah, I know what you're, that's a Bad Boys reference. I guess that movie spans over 20, 25 years. So, yeah,
that was a cool conversation. He's a cool dude. He's like us. He seems down to earth.
It's amazing. It really is. It's kind of crazy just to be able to sit down and talk with somebody that. And I really wanted to get to a lot of other things too. I'm sorry. It's crazy we got off on tangents, but hopefully he'll come back on here at some point. I really wanted to know, what's going through your mind when you're stepping into an octagon in a cage with thousands of people screaming. We didn't even get to the fact the dude, he's 10-0. He's a 10-0 heavyweight. He hasn't lost yet.
Oh, yeah.
He's in Bellator, and he's going to be on Showtime here in, just like I said, 10 or 12 days. So I wanted to go through that. I wanted to find out what it is, the excitement, the adrenaline, and things like that, because
I don't know what he would be thinking, but I know what I would be thinking. I'm scared shitless. I'm going to get my ass beat, but hopefully I get paid good.
Yeah. If the money was good, I would be good to go. It doesn't matter. Like, I would go in the ring for $2 million and take a punch from Mike Tyson all day long.
Oh, yeah. I would let Mike Tyson knock me clean out.
But then again, I mean, and I wanted to talk about this with him because he alluded to something that was kind of a crazy point. He was talking about, getting mentally prepared for fights and the mindset you have to have. And I wanted to go into the fact that, going over a bunch of Mike Tyson's old fights, when you compare the people's records that he fought, what they were before he fought them and what they were after him, he broke so many people, so many careers. Like, people would be 19-2, and then they would end their career like 22-16, or they would be 24-3, and they would be 24-4, and they'd never fight again. Mike Tyson broke. It's such a mental thing to get in there into the ring, and if you lose it, I guess it's really hard. And Bowden, you can kind of probably speak to this towards racing. If you take a really hard lick, you know, that was kind of the basis of Days of Thunder. You know, can you get back in the car? Can you take that lick and still have the same mental fortitude to go 205 miles an hour again?
Well, that's a good way to reference it. I was kind of thinking more of the lines of Michael Jordan when it came to mental, because we always compare Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan as the great, as far as skilled basketball players of all times. But Michael Jordan had the mentality. He would make, you know, when Michael Jordan, he was always trash talking somebody. And when he would get up to you, he already knew what he was going to talk about. And he was going to talk about you during the game, be in the middle of the play. And he used the psychological side all the time. He made you doubt yourself. And he had skill, and that was another skill that you couldn't see it. We didn't know it as fans on TV until now we got the internet and we're able to hear all these old players say, Michael Jordan was talking about my mama. He was talking about what he was going to do to me. He told me what he was going to do, and then he did it. And there's such a mental game to sports that people that could be your best and your worst enemy. In that case, is Michael Jordan's best enemy. It's his opponent's worst enemy, be worse than the skill. It's and then same as in a race car. You get in a race car, you lose that mentality, you lose that the drive, because man, is this hit going to take me out of here? And that's exactly, you know, Dale Earnhardt Jr. is a good example of that.
Yeah, I just found it really fascinating, and I was super appreciative to have Steve come on here. Like I said, I just kind of reached out to him. I said, I kind of want to talk about, you know, talk to a fighter and kind of see his deal. But he was kind of he's in pretty interested in talking about the based libertarian philosophy and stuff as well, and that made it really, really awesome for me. And hopefully we get him back, because that means we got so much more to talk about next time. I really would like to talk to him about his fight that's coming up, hopefully when after that's over with, because we're all going to sit around and maybe watch it. Maybe we can all come over here and have a, you know, grill out some steaks.
He's going to beat that comrade's ass.
Yes, absolutely. We have to have that happen. I mean, this is for America now. We got that 1980s nostalgia going again. So, yeah, I had a ball. That was a fun time. Cool. That was a fun time. So, that being said, Bodine, is there anything else you wanted to add?
But we do need to so we can do for God's pick, see if we can help some people out. It'd be cool to be able to get some stuff together and take to them. I don't know what they're going to do. I always just kind of hate donating money. I would rather donate goods.
But if you want to donate goods, you can go deliver to them. They are in Danville. I can't remember the exact address, but you can go on their Facebook page or web page and get the address. They're accepting donations there. I'm probably just going to send them, you know, some money through PayPal or whatever. I hate using PayPal. Whatever service I can, send them a little bit of money to help out, because I know those guys are working very hard. If you're listening to this show, it's been a good week of Steve's for us. So go over there and check out our D's Lug Nuts podcast, because Bodine, as we will probably be listening to this show, or we're going to be listening to our next D's Lug Nuts show with Steve Post as we're driving to North Wilkesboro, because both of these shows will be released Tuesday morning, and we'll be making our way down to see the modifieds race.
Look for good weather. I hadn't looked ahead for the weather. Let's hope for it's a nice, beautiful day down in Wilkes County.
Let's hope so. So check out, if you're listening to this, check out our D's Lug Nuts episode. It'll feature Steve Post of MRN Radio. And once again, we appreciate you listening to us here. We thank the Harwell Grace Band and Joshua Grace for his begging ways and his music. Also, please go check us out on Facebook, the Appalachian Podcast, Instagram, Twitter. We're on all of those, YouTube, all kinds of stuff. Patreon, patreon.com/GetOnTap if you want to donate and help support us. We appreciate all the help we get. It's a couple of dollars a month. We release all of our episodes as soon as we can there, and hopefully here soon we're going to be working on some extra bonus content. It's kind of tough right now with the little one here. Makes it really hard. and plus with the diesel lug nuts and all this kind of stuff, maybe we'll add some extra stuff from this race weekend coming up. But check us out there everywhere you can. Tall Steve Fights People. Check him out on Instagram, Facebook, all that kind of stuff, and watch us fight in a couple weeks on Showtime. I'm excited about it, and we'll do something kind of big for that, Bodine.
All right. Sounds good to me.
Well, everybody, we certainly appreciate your time, and our next show, hopefully, will be featuring the legend, the Fair and Flash, the Fair and Flicker, Paul Radford. So be listening, and take care.
Can't wait for that one.
I'm super excited. All right, till next time, folks.
All right.